All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Good evening. So, welcome to the Microsoft CSEO hiring event with HBCU Connect. Wanted to thank everybody for joining us. This should be a very, very informative evening. I'm very excited because we have some great folks from the Microsoft CSEO team that are going to not only present CSEO, but they're also going to present themselves and their Microsoft journey so that you can get to know them better, get to know the Microsoft culture better, and really take advantage of this opportunity. We like normally when we have these types of events, these events are actually physical events in different parts of the country where Microsoft team members actually fly into those events to host interviews, to also present themselves and their team, in person. And then after, the presentations, we actually have a networking session. But as you guys know, we're currently trying to stay safe with the current pandemic and, the coronavirus situation. So we decided to move these events from physical events to virtual events. So you all are taking advantage of Microsoft's commitment to continuing to present themselves to diverse candidates, present their opportunities to diverse candidates, and interview folks and hire folks from these events. So this is a real, opportunity. We'll talk about the hiring process towards the end of the evening, but what we want to do first is introduce you guys to the team, have you get a better understanding of CSEO and what they do. But first things first, what I like to do is run through the agenda for the evening so that you know what we're going to be talking about. So first, I'll give a quick welcome, introduce you guys to myself and HBCU Connect and our relationship with Microsoft. Then I'll hand it off to Rich Neal, who's going to give us sort of an overview and a keynote, which I'm very excited about because Rich and I have done events like this in the past. And then once Rich finishes up, I'm going to introduce you to the team members that have volunteered their time to share their experiences working for Microsoft and also working for CSEO. So you'll be able to understand who you're talking to so that you can ask some questions in the chat window once we get to the Q&A, specifically for those team members or, in general that, some team members can volunteer to answer. So we'll introduce you to everyone on the team, get their background so that you can kind of get a picture of Microsoft culture, the types of people that work on the CSEO team. Then I'll host a panel session or a panel discussion where I'll ask some questions to the Microsoft team to bring out a little bit more information about the culture, a little bit more information about what it's like to work for Microsoft, things that are important to Microsoft. So those will be my questions for the team for you guys' benefit. And then once we get done with the panel discussion, we'll have a live Q&A where you will actually be able to ask questions in the chat window. And then I will direct those questions to different members of the Microsoft team or allow them to kind of speak up and answer the questions if it's related to their experience at Microsoft. And then once we get done with the live Q&A, we'll talk about next steps. And then I'll also give the CSO recruitment team a chance to speak to the process and what to expect. So that's the agenda for this evening. And with that being said, let me quickly introduce myself and our history with HBCU Connect working with Microsoft. A lot of you guys know me because I've been sort of the key person for communications related to the event. I manage all of that. I have a team here in Columbus, Ohio that's responsible for not only helping out with answering questions. A lot of you guys probably know Steve on my team who's answered a lot of questions, or Sean Starks. But we are with HBCU Connect, which is the largest organization of students and graduates of historically Black colleges and universities. But we've had partnerships with companies like Microsoft, where we help Microsoft and other companies diversify their talent pool in order to get opportunities to work for some of these great companies. So we've had a long-standing relationship with Microsoft, over the last 10 or so years. Microsoft has done recruitment events specifically to hire candidates with us every single year since we started working with them, or since we started doing events with Microsoft. So big kudos to Microsoft and the team, because there's a serious commitment to diversity. Almost, every week I get a message on LinkedIn or I get a message on HBCU Connect from candidates that say, thanks, so much for what you guys have done. I just landed my dream career with Microsoft. So this is a real hiring effort, and a big thank you to Microsoft for continuing to partner with us to do this. So that's a little bit of background on myself, a little bit of background on our relationship with Microsoft. And I really want you guys to take advantage of this opportunity. If you haven't already submitted your resume to us, I'll give you guys instructions for doing that towards the end of this presentation. But with that, I just want to say welcome. I want to say thank you. And I want to hand it over to my friend Rich Neal at Microsoft. I'm looking forward to hearing from you and your recent path into CSEO. So welcome, Rich.
Right on.
Right on.
So can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So as Will said, I've had the opportunity to partner a couple of times with HBCU Connect. It's a great organization. Microsoft is glad to have you as a partner. So I'll say that first before I kick off. And I know it says Keynote. It's more of just an intro, super casual, informal, in the 5-10 minutes that I have to talk with you. One of the things I would also say before getting started is that, as Will said, there are real hiring opportunities, but in that there's a two-way relationship in that hiring opportunity. We need you to be real and honest about the experiences you want to have here and the questions that you have of all of us. And I'd say for myself, no question is off limits. And especially for this community with recent event here in the States and abroad, I want to make sure that this is a comfortable space to ask any and all questions about our journey specifically and Microsoft's accountabilities and responsibilities to global philanthropy and other things. So as I get started, I just want to say thank everyone for expressing interest in Microsoft as a company. I know with the skills of the resumes that I've seen, you have options. And so I'm grateful and thankful that you've elected to spend some time with Microsoft about hearing these opportunities. And now more than ever, I'd say Microsoft and tech companies need you. And say representation is incredibly important when you want to have your services or your products reflect the communities that you serve. You can't do that without representation. You need representation in product review meetings, business development, community affairs, and all these things so that you make sure that you are actually delivering something that helps and enable all communities. And so, again, these events like this are wonderful for us to meet, that commitment we have to diversity. So I thought I'd start with a couple things. One, just a little bit about myself and the role that I have at Microsoft and my quick journey of 17 years here, and then share a little bit of, if I would even call it that, wisdom I've gained over the 17 years being at Microsoft. And then before I turn it back over to Will and others, a little bit about the broader corporate strategy, core services, engineering, and operations org that I'm in, a brief sort of overview. So first, myself. So I've been at Microsoft for 17 years. About 15 of that was in customer service and support. And I had various roles in customer service and support. Probably the most notable things that this group may know anything about is I was the guy who launched Xbox Live as a service. So turning our box gaming system into a paid subscription opportunity with the rest of the world. I'm the guy who did that. Tons of great learnings around how to get the right things on credit card statements and other things and global policies and global payment methods. It was great experience as an individual contributor when I first started at Microsoft. About 4 years into Microsoft, I got my first people manager job. And it was in, again, customer service and support. I led a process team where we did core agent processes, so knowledge articles that we put online for customers and for our support engineers. And in this first manager job is really where I kind of fell in love with what the dream of Microsoft is, being able to see my work influence and impact the globe, right? So all 241 countries where we provide services and technology, I could actually see my work landing in those markets across all those languages. And it was really the first time that I really felt like this, a global owner of a business and how my work and the things that I did affect the globe. And it was really cool. From there, I had several leadership roles, process, training, different tools development, technical support with Azure, technical support obviously with gaming and Surface devices, all of it kind of really around operations, PM, project management. So the questions that may come in the chat channel on that, I know Kamika will hold them down, but I'll jump in and answer a few too myself. But in all of my work and that PM project management sort of capability, that's what, to Will's point, what just moved me from CSS over to where I'm at now, which is corporate strategy, core service engineering, and operations. So today in my current role, I have accountability over all of Microsoft's product SKU setup and pricing configuration. So anytime a field seller sells something or our partners buy something to transact on, my team sets up all the pricing and product SKU configuration for that globally. Another accountability I have is field readiness for these commerce changes. And so my team either writes or helps organize the content and collateral for our partners to learn how to operationalize new product services and campaigns from Microsoft. And the last is near and dear to me is as a PM platform and capability. So as I said, I've spent most of my time around project management and PM. And the last third area of my responsibility in my current role is really around making sure our organization has great PM capability in a tool, in a launch tool. So over my 17 years, the second point is maybe a bit of wisdom that I would say, and I have to admit that being at Microsoft for 17 years, I will have forgotten the other two companies that I worked at and some of their cultures and nuances and the way that they work. So some of this is obviously steeped in my experience at Microsoft. One of them would be, I think, straightforward and obvious. Do what you say you're going to do. Right? Be accountable for yourself and your actions. If you're going to commit to something, get it done. Not going to get it done, let people know ahead of time before you miss a deadline. Super important. Some things that may not be as obvious is listen and act on what is most important. And I say listen and act very intentionally in that you could be in a meeting and listen to your manager talk about the 6 priorities. And he or she may be talking about those 6 priorities broadly to a broader organization, but you have to really lean in and understand of those 6 priorities, what's most important for me, and listen and act on those things to help progress and move your career along. Last things I'd say is that for me at Microsoft, it's been great to understand how mentorship works. And so for me, I try to always have a mentor for the job that I'm in and a mentor for the job that I want, and have those open, candid conversations around where my skills are not meeting those expectations so I can really develop on those things to get the job that I aspire to have. But having 2 mentors, I would say, is important, and allowing those mentors to give you critical feedback and taking action on it. The last thing I'd say has been, really important in my tenure at Microsoft is this notion of seeking and managing sponsorship relationships. So specifically for our community, you look at tech across the board, anywhere from 3 to 5% Black African American population at companies. And so it isn't intrinsically available to just have sponsors. You don't get to walk down the hall and see 10 people who look and behave like you. So you really have to work at getting sponsorship because it is important. You got to have advocates who are going to advocate on your behalf when you're not around. And so I would stress just how important mentorship and sponsorship is. So last thing before I turn it back over to Will or the next speaker is that at the beginning, I represent, at least in this recruiting session, corporate strategy, corporate core services engineering, and operations. And in this, you could think of it as engineering for the company. So we obviously have engineering teams who are building Azure, O365, Dynamics, and those tools. We also have engineering capability that builds the internal tools that we use across the company and our customers use as a broad base. And so these would be any transaction tools that we have payment systems or payment instruments on. This would be anything around our risk and compliance motion, any of our HR systems or tools, sales systems and tools. And that's really on the engineering side. On our corporate strategy side of things, this is really about how it is Microsoft understands how you're going to compete and gain market share. And so this team is designed to go get after motions like that. And then the org that I'm in, operations, this is really about Microsoft's lifeblood of being proficient in terms of operations. So this is everything from all new products that we want to launch and introduce to market, making sure we're doing that in an efficient and effective way, all the way to when we're closing deals and contracts with large customers or enterprise customers. So that's where I live, in operations. And I'm looking forward to the dynamic panelists that we're going to have, and hearing those great hard questions that you may have of the team and answers. And best of luck to all of you in whatever your goals and dreams are in terms of joining Microsoft or otherwise. So with that,
So
I'll hand it back over.
I actually like to dig a little bit deeper, and get to know each of our presenters a little bit better. That's okay. I have a couple follow-up questions for you, Rich.
Shoot.
So where are you from originally?
So originally, I'm from Rhode Island. I spent 8 years there. My dad was in the service, and then my mom's family is from Louisiana, but my grandfather decided to take work at Boeing way back, so he relocated all of my aunts and uncles up to the Northwest. So that's how I came to be in the Northwest. I'm currently living in the greater Redmond, Seattle area, but that's where I'm from originally, is Rhode Island, Newport to be specific.
And what was your path to Microsoft? How did you end up working for Microsoft? This is always I think, an interesting question that people are curious
about. And everyone's going to have something interesting on this. So my story isn't really all that exciting. So before Microsoft, I've only worked for 3 companies. I worked for United Parcel Services. I worked for Terex, which is a lightweight construction manufacturing company, in Microsoft. So before joining Microsoft, I was at Terex. And in 2000, I got a call from a recruiter from Microsoft about coming to join one of their subscription services teams. And first of all, I was like, I don't even, maybe you got the wrong number. I don't know why. I'm in manufacturing. How would you see these transferable skills to get into Microsoft? But again, all of my background has been on PM, process improvement. So that's how they discovered me. I came out for an interview and I said, you know what, this is not really the right thing for me. So I declined the offer. In 2003, I got a call, a different part of the same org, subscription services. Like I said, I launched Xbox Live. The services that they were talking about there for subscription were exciting to me. To be able to be, on the precipice of our gaming industry for Microsoft, to take it globally with subscription services was enticing and exciting. And I remember coming to the interview, and there was this was back in the day when you could have 8-hour interviews, and they ask you, you got a round manhole cover and a square leaf. How do you fit it over the side? Or can you go find this book in a library and tell me how you would go about finding if the card wasn't available in the index card? So I went through all that. So it was 8 hours of I thought, intense interviews, and I honestly was like, I don't know what that has to do with process management, but okay. But I remember leaving the interview not thinking, I don't know if I did well or whatnot. And I actually called my mom on the way home after the interview, and she told me, boy, if they offer you a second job, you better not turn it down, because they're not going to call you 3 times. So as much as I would say I was in control of my own destiny, my mom actually made the call for me. So that's how I came to Microsoft in 2003.
Nice. Do you have any direct reports? Are you still managing people now?
Yeah, so I have a team of 100 in my org all up. We got 11 people managers. And so that roughly the balance of that is 90, 89 individual contributors. The total book of work is somewhere around 19 million direct and close to, 35, 40 million indirect. And then our team, like I said, we do all the pricing, setup and SKU configuration. So Microsoft's revenue last year, which was 127 billion, my organization enabled $80 billion of revenue for the company.
Impressive. So one last question. And first, let me say thanks for all of your work on Xbox. I'm sure a good percentage of us took advantage of that.
But now that you're at home,
right.
Teams and Xbox.
Question, I figure you could probably get an interesting perspective on this. And a lot of candidates are worried about the interview process and what to expect. So from your perspective, any advice you can give candidates for the interview process when they interview with Microsoft, what advice would you give them?
That's interesting. Well, obviously, do your homework, right? Understand what you want out of a role, and empower yourself to ask broader questions in the day job, right? Because again, like I said, the interview process is a two-way conversation. So don't come in, you know, afraid to ask for things that you may feel may take you out of the loop, right? Because if you're interviewing with, a great manager, which we have tons of great people managers, they won't shy away from those conversations and they won't shy away from those questions. So I say do your homework, feel empowered to ask the difficult questions, and last thing, and I won't put anybody in the spot, but they're on the call. We had a very dynamic conversation earlier today around salaries, and so also understand your worth, right? But you get the choice to make the trade-off on whether the salary price point is something that you will accept or that you need to walk away from. But know your value, do your homework, and okay with asking those hard questions. Because I assure you, on the Microsoft side, we will take any and all those questions.
Excellent. So I appreciate your time. I'm sure there's going to be some questions for you as we get to the Q&A section of the evening. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to our next speaker. So thanks, Rich. So our next speaker is Ratna. So Ratna, if you're ready, I will go ahead and pass it over to you. But Ratna is a senior software engineering manager within Microsoft's procurement and payment. So Ratna, are you ready?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sounds good. Okay. My name is Ratna Kaukuntla. I'm very delighted today to speak with you all today and then answer all the questions that you might have. I'm a software engineering manager leading the fulfillment and sustainability projects that belong to our procurement payment space in a group called Corporate Functions Engineering, which is CFE. You will hear one thing at Microsoft is there are a lot of acronyms out here. So yeah, I work in corporate functions engineering. And few things about me. I was born and brought up in India, and I came to United States for doing my master's. It was quite a good journey during that time. And then I'm right now in Microsoft. I'm almost 14 years back in Microsoft right now. I joined right after my college days. During my career here, I moved between 4 different groups, various projects, worked on many V1 launches, like version 1 launches, and then worked on different tools and versions of tools and services while I'm here. When I joined Microsoft 14 years back, I joined as a software engineering and testing, the role called SDET. During that time, I was working on developing a lot of automation tools, and I was brief time after that into program management for a few months. And then I moved into development because that's what I felt like that my core interest is in. And then I moved into development role for 5 years, and where I was started with as UX developer, middle tier developer, backend developer. And from last 2 years, I'm a software engineering manager. So if you see my career, I'm a full stack developer from that perspective. One thing I can say based on my experience here at Microsoft is it's a place where you can have rich and varied career if you want to. I learned a lot during each of my disciplines changes at this in Microsoft, and then everybody they support you during this career change, and also the learning, the time that you require to learn. It was completely supported. And looking back, right, personally, professionally, and culturally, I feel it is such a fulfilling place for me, and that's what kept me here from last 14 years. And I'm married and have 2 kids while I'm here at Microsoft. And throughout, even during my kids and all that phases, had very supporting managers who supported me throughout my career changes I almost had 8 different managers during this time. I can speak great about every single one of them. So it feels like Microsoft is there in every part of my life if I look back. And there are various aspects I can say that I admire about Microsoft, the opportunities it gave me, tech stack, the technical resources, the resources the amount of knowledge people have around you, to the softwares that you can see that you can work on hands-on. It is just amazing. And culturally, like the given I said, like, I had so many managers change around me, like, the access to the leaders and how vision led they are, and what amount the amount of passion they bring to the table, and the constant communication of company culture, and just making sure that we are all being inclusive, and constant reminders for us, like, how every person coming onto the table may have different operating styles and different family needs and different health needs, and just making sure that we are aware of unconscious biases and everything, right? Being a manager, how much I'm being trained to like help everybody on my team, it is amazing. And even like when we are building products, like making sure that the accessibility is taken into consideration, security, everything, like, and making sure customer comes first, the attitude that we need to bring and we expect everybody to bring to the table is super good. So that's what I feel like, it kept me going in Microsoft from so many years. Yeah.
So I have a couple of questions for you that I think will kind of, considering your role,
Mhm.
how many team members do you manage now, and sort of what are the responsibilities or services or products that your team builds? And then I want to talk a little bit about the technologies that your team uses.
Yeah. So I have 9 people team that I manage, and I have like my team members. We have different skill sets that we have. Like in my team specifically, I have UX core UX folks and the core data folks, and then middle tier folks, because the services that I'm building, it is from the procurement and the payment space. So where we are building like a fulfillment service, which kind of we receive various goods and services for all the Microsoft employees. So there is a need for doing the invoice, receiving process, and then also doing the invoices for them. So that is where my team is building all the different tooling that can help our internal folks. And the second set of, I have 2 projects, and the second set of project that I have is all about sustainability efforts that Microsoft is doing with the recycling and the modernization that we want to bring in our own internal space of having the better recycling commitments across the board, and reduce the carbon footprint. So those are the 2 projects that I handle. And from tech perspective that you asked, like we majorly use Azure Tech, but like, across my group, if I have to speak, not just from my own project, we use the React, Angular from UI technologies, and C Sharp. Pretty mostly in my group, we use C Sharp for the middle tier, but there are groups out there which use different type of languages. And there are a lot of backend systems that we use, like SQL, Cosmos DB, storage, Azure storages, like Blob, table storages. And then we also build some mobile applications, and there is big data applications within my peer teams as well, like Data Lake, Spark, Azure Synapse, and Databricks. So we have like varied skills and needs in our group, and we also kind of like have varied projects which demand different types of stuff.
Excellent. So I appreciate you taking the time to kind of give your background and some of your experiences. And like I said, I'm sure there will be some questions that come through the chat as well as the Q&A session. But thank you, Ratna. And with that, I think I'll go ahead and move to our next speaker. Okay, so our next speaker is Jorge Berlanga. So Jorge, if you're ready, Jorge is the Senior Software Engineering Manager in Microsoft's corporate, external, and legal affairs team. So I'm very curious myself as to what your team does, especially from a software engineering perspective for corporate, external, and legal affairs. But if you're ready, I'll hand the microphone to you virtually.
So you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So hello, everybody, and I hope you're having a great afternoon. It's kind of difficult to follow Rich and Ratna, but here we go. So my name is Jorge Berlanga, as was mentioned, and I'm an engineering manager, and I've been at the company for 15 years. I've been here for what seems to be a long time. And I started very early in my career. I started actually as an intern right out of college, and then moved to an FTE. And there's some stories there, and I'm sure Will is going to have some questions about that, but I'll leave that for later. So I've had one of the things that I love about this company is that as your appetite for learning different things, you can switch roles, functions, teams. There's everything for everybody. And you can see in my profile that I started as a software design engineering test. Then I moved over to software engineering. Then I went all the way to a role that we used to call solution management. Then I moved over to being more of a PM type role. Then I moved over to service engineering, and I ran production services. And then I moved back to software engineering, and now I'm doing management on software engineering. And some of those moves were by design, some of those moves were by opportunity. And really it's about capitalizing as you move through your career and find the different opportunities that call you, that you go like, hey, I want to go do that. I want to go solve that problem. And sometimes they seem quite a bit insurmountable. And to what Rich was saying, it's good to have a sponsor that believes in you, that pushes you to take on those challenges that you go like, I don't know if I can do that. That seems like too difficult. And I've had conversations with people where I go, you know what? I go and I jump in, and then once I look back, I go like, well, it wasn't that difficult. I was able to figure it out. And yes, you learn things along the way, but don't be shy from taking on a very, very challenging role. That's one of the things that I love about this company is those big, bold bets that you do on yourself or your team or your coworkers. They don't come with the concept of failing fast and learning, and all those things are very, very true in our culture. So even if you go out and try to hit super high, you go and learn and you iterate and you get better and you better yourself, you better your team, you better your career. So you can see that on sort of the different roles that you've seen, whether it's Ratna, whether it's myself, whether it's Ayo, who's coming up next. There's people evolve and they take on new projects. I used to work in the finance department, and I did projects that are very, very diverse. At some point, I ran our team that did treasury, and I was accountable for over $1 trillion in transactions in dollars. It's kind of like, what are those numbers? Then you have conversations with your spouse about, hey, we're going to spend just $2,000. Like, no, it's some perspective. This is our money, not the company money. So the things that we deal here with at Microsoft are massive. They're huge. They're super impactful. That's what excites me on a daily basis to go and solve things. Now to the question about what my team does today. So I have a team of 16 engineers, and I take care of a couple of things within corporate, external, and legal affairs. What that means, what that organization does, is it handles anything that has to do with corporate law, right? Whether it's immigration, whether it's corporate records management, intellectual property, there's many different businesses within this world. The areas that I focus on is the legal guidance, the legal experience across the company for all our employees. How do we provide legal guidance? How do we provide access to the right lawyers, to have the right deals with third-party software providers so that we comply with the law? How do we build our intellectual property? All those types of things. So that's the area that I work on. And the technologies that we use there are .NET, we use Blazor, we use React, we use Azure Services, we use Azure Functions, we use Power Platform, SQL database. It's so varied, and we go and learn the different tools, and we build this microservices, and we're constantly iterating. So as engineers, it's a very, very, very fulfilling playground of technology, because we grab the different problems that we have to solve, and we solve it with the right tool. So there's a lot of flexibility at the ground level with the individual contributors to go and innovate. Then on the other side, the other area that I manage is called the intellectual property group. And we manage everything from idea harvesting across the company, all the way to patent management, trademark management, or trade secret management. This involves our entire IP portfolio for that company. So all the stuff that we do to protect our assets and our ideas and all those things, that's something that my team manages. In that, we use technologies from interacting with best-in-class SaaS providers at one end to building custom solutions on Angular or, again, Blazor or React with app services or with microservices running in Kubernetes, right? So there's many things that we do from an engineering perspective. And I think I covered pretty much. Oh, I am of Mexican descent. I am part of our ERG here for Hispanics. So it's called HOLA, Hispanic Organization of Leaders in Action. And I was born and raised in Mexico, and I went to college in Mexico, and somehow I landed over here in Redmond, Washington.
I wanted to ask a follow-up question related to that, because a lot of candidates that are on this call are not in the Pacific Northwest. So what was the transition like for you when you moved to the Pacific Northwest, and how did you sort of acclimate, and maybe what are some of the selling points for living there?
Well, it was scary. I was 21 years old, going to a world where I didn't know a lot of people, was hugely excited. And I think just the adrenaline from the whole thing just like kind of like numbed me to the shock, right? It's moving countries is not easy. Moving regions is not easy. Finding a group of people that you identify with and you want to build relationships with, being friends with, is not easy. But the one thing that I really appreciate about the company and the area is it's so big that you end up finding the people that you gravitate towards, right? And then there's also that powerful thing of recruiting, and then you bring your friends too. So the process was not easy for me in terms of adjusting, being away from my family, from my parents, from my brothers, from my cousins, and everybody else. But I've adjusted really nicely. I've been here for 15 years. I don't plan to go back. I love the clean air. It rains here from time to time, or so they tell me. But the air is super clean. You go outside and everything's green. It's beautiful. There's big trees. I see Rich laughing like crazy. So it's a lovely area to live in. I like the woods. I like to be outside and play. We live behind a forest. So we go for walks and trails, and it's absolutely lovely out here.
So I have one quick follow-up question, because I know a lot of candidates, you're a software engineering manager. A lot of candidates are probably wondering what types of projects software engineers work on. So could you give an example of maybe an interesting project, and what type of talent had to plug into that project to get it done?
So there's many types of projects, but I'll give you an example of something that we're running right now. So one of the things that I manage in our experiences side is a tool that manages compliance. Compliance is not a jazzy thing or something that is super interesting, but because it is compliance, it's not something that a lot of companies focus on. So this tool that we're basically building it from the ground up. There was something there before that was kind of fragile. We went in and we were like, you know what is the cost benefit analysis between improving the tool that is there or basically putting it to the side and building something from scratch? And we decided to go with the something from scratch. And I was able to put together a group of 5 engineers with a combination of .NET background, of UX development, and we basically are running pairing sessions on a recurring basis, right? And we're following all the right methodologies that you hear about, test-driven development, right? driving proper unit testing, proper integration testing, all those things we're working on those things. But because it's an area that is not something that a lot of companies focus on, it is a capability that we have built within Microsoft, and there's conversations that with our business partner to, hey, is this something that we can package up and sell to other companies, because people need it. People need this to be compliant. So there's a lot of opportunities even within CSEO with go-to-market opportunities. You just need to be very clear about how you're going to model that and how to execute on it. From a talent perspective, as I mentioned, we have people that have very deep knowledge of C# and React and entity framework, and we're building things on Blazor, which is super exciting and super fun. If you are a software engineer and you like C#, go and try out Blazor. Your life is just going to dramatically change. It is a beautiful, beautiful thing, because all the patterns that you use for your APIs that you love and you are passionate about, you can apply that to front-end technology as well. So I don't know if that answered your question. I kind of rambled on that a little bit.
No, excellent. That's exactly what I was looking for. So thank you, Jorge, and appreciate you kind of breaking down your role and responsibility there at Microsoft. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to our next presenter, Kazi Zahira. If you're ready, I'll go ahead and hand the microphone over to you virtually. But Kazi is a software engineer too in commercial sales and marketing engineering. So Kazi, if you're ready.
Yes, can you guys hear me right?
Yes, floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kazi Zahira, as Will pointed out. I work as a software engineer. My experience is not as rich as Jorge and Ratna, so it's kind of difficult to follow up after their and Neil's introduction. So it's more like I've been working in Microsoft for 2 years, so pretty fresh, and I got into Microsoft directly out of grad school. So I'm originally from Kashmir, which is a little contested territory between India and Pakistan, and I went to do my bachelor's in Malaysia, and then all the way from Malaysia, I moved to Canada for my grad school. Then after grad school, after a long experience of applying for too many jobs, I got an offer with Microsoft. And in Microsoft, I've been Microsoft for 2 years, and in Microsoft, I've been, since I started my position here, I've been working with commercial sales and marketing engineering, which is one of the parts, one of the orgs within the CSEO. And I've been working on multiple things, including data privacy, GDPR implementation, if anyone is aware of that, what that is. And now I'm working on integrating Adobe Asset Management System with the stores, Microsoft Stores website, Microsoft.com website where you go to buy Surface Book. Yeah, that's right. I'm working on that website. And I have been working in multiple dimensions, both in back end and front end for the people who are interested. And that's pretty much it. Very short and sweet. Sorry, my experience is limited in comparison to Jorge and Ratna and Neil. So if you guys have any questions, I'm totally in for answering that. Yes, Will.
I'd like to kind of follow up to kind of dig a little bit deeper, because a lot of candidates that are on the call will probably come in doing, to a similar capacity as yourself, being software engineers. So I'm curious as to what technologies you typically use to get the job done, and what you see being used on your team. And then I may have a couple more follow-ups questions.
Sure. So I actually started off on a backend project, and we were using C# for that project. And then I moved on working on 2 front-end pod projects, and for both the projects, we started using the React TypeScript for the people who are curious to know. Yeah, sorry.
No problem. Excellent. So my next question is, since you came in as a software engineer, can you talk a little bit about your interview process? Interviewing with Microsoft. What was it like, and any advice you might give to folks that are interviewing with Microsoft?
Yes, absolutely. I think things are much more fresh in my mind. So something which is very interesting is that I actually work as a remote employee from the Vancouver office in Canada for a team in Redmond. So that's something if somebody is interested in knowing how does that work, remote employment in general. But my interview process was pretty straightforward. I had a recruiter who got in touch with me, and then the recruiter, because they were interested in my resume, and then I had a screening, which was pretty much half an hour, where they ask you a bunch of questions, and then I was called for an on-site interview, which is basically the coming to Redmond office, spending the whole day here, meeting the teams that you would potentially be working with. I had 4 interviews, as people would be aware of how the interview processes work. And I think the first 3 interviews are because I was applying for a SWE role, the software engineering role. So I had 3 interviews with the software engineers, and the last interview is generally with the manager or the hiring manager, basically, who would be interested in your. And my interview process was pretty much a standard software engineering interview process, where basically they get to know about your experience, and they ask you a bunch of technical questions, and they wanted to know what my thesis was about, which was pretty interesting because I did bioinformatics, if anyone is aware of that, which was radically different but the skills are so interchangeable in computer science in general that it was like, yeah, that's great. You know a bit of biology. That's awesome. So, so my first and I potentially got actually in the team of the person who was interviewing me third. So I was pretty excited because he was my favorite. No one needs to know that. And so that's pretty much what happened. And I think within a day or 2, I was informed that I got an offer, and here I am talking to you guys.
The rest is history.
The rest is history.
Thank you.
That's correct.
Thank you, Kazi. So I know Jaya has a demo. So with that, I'll move on to our next speaker. But thank you for your insight, and I'm sure there'll be some questions that you'll be fit to answer going forward. Jaya, welcome. So Jaya is also Jaya is a senior software engineer on the smart building team, and Jaya is actually going to give us a demo. So Jay, if you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll pass the microphone to you virtually.
Sure. Hey, hello everyone. Very excited to talking with you guys again, and hopefully everyone is doing well and great. So whoever was in the last call might be knowing me. So I'm the senior software engineer in the digital workplace team. It is part of the end user engineering, and I have like an industry experience of 13 years, and then 3 years plus couple of months in Microsoft. I've joined the CSEO team from the beginning, and I'm in the same digital workplace team for last 3 years. The work we are doing is the digital transformation. We would like to create a accessible, connected and secured environment for all Microsoft employees. There are like the technology, we have all the technologies are involved. We have like 9 small projects in the digital workplace team, and everyone has their own technology. Commonly used is like React.js, React Native, Azure Cloud, backend is .NET, Cosmos DB, SQL DB, you can name it. It's like a lot of technologies are involved in digital workplace, as I think it is true for all the projects in CSEO itself. And then the important work which our team is doing is to increase the productivity for an employee. Take up a small example, like if I'm going for a meeting from one building to another building, where can I park my car? How can I reach to my conference room quickly? So those kind of scenarios, we look for it and we will work on solving those scenarios. Well, can I share my screen? I think you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So if you want to request your to take control
Yeah,
to share your screen, I'll go ahead and allow that. There you go.
cool. Can you see my screen?
It's coming up now. Yep.
Cool. So this is a kiosk application, whereas we can use the same application in the web as well. So for the demo purpose, I'm showing it from the my system. So this is a smart building application. This actually depicts the exact floor map of an building. You should be able to see all the building across the Microsoft and see the layout of the building. The first scenario I'm going to explain about is the room availability. So this is purely using the sensors. We are using the moving sensors to find out the room capacity or like room availability. Example, like, hey, I booked my conference room 2006, and it actually check for the people are available in the building in the particular conference room, and then it will show the red color. Or if it is booked but it is not occupied by anyone, it will actually show the yellow color, and then slowly we will release the conference room as well. um, this is to actually help the employees to like I have a meeting and then I finished up with the conversation, but I need another meeting room. If I want to quickly check in the meeting room availability, there is a kiosk is everywhere available on the floor, where you can go ahead and then reserve the meeting room as well here from here itself. um, this one you shouldn't reserve it, so you should reserve the available ones, so where you can book the conference rooms and go ahead and use it. So when you book it, you have to swipe your badge, and then you can take your attendees with you and go ahead and use the room. So this is the first functionality we it's most used by the employees as part of the productivity experience. The second one is like, this is a huge problem for everyone in Microsoft to find the wayfinding within Microsoft. Not all the Microsoft employees actually know from one destination to another place, even if they are in the same floor, or if it's going to be really difficult when you go to the another building. I have faced this situation a number of times. I'm lost. Like, I always go to the lobby and then ask like, hey, where is this conference room? Can you please help me? So this one, it is actually what it does. Like, you will have a get direction where it will actually show the direction from the kiosk where it is located and the building where do you want to go. It is based on the rotation of the building as well. So you should be able to actually see, this is actually my location. I just set my location as this one, and then it's just going to show like, hey, you have to just walk way this path, and then you can find out this application. And this one we are trying to convert into a mobile application, so you can use your mobile phone to find it. The next level of experience we are working on as part of this wayfinding is like, this is like a static one, because it's A is always static, you can always change the B, but as you move you cannot see it. So we want to exactly replicate the same scenario like how the Google Maps works. So but it is like internal to the building, so we are working with all the possibilities and then working on the future experience. Cool, that's about my demo.
Oh, I think that's super cool. I think back in my software engineering days, I worked on something similar, but a lot less tech related. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my presentation.
Cool.
Fast, and then that's okay. And then so as far as I did have a question. So the hardware that you interface with, so you guys are developing the software to bring this application to life. The hardware that you guys are using, like for example, to know if there's availability or people are in a room or not, is that Microsoft hardware or is that third-party hardware?
It is third party. So our business is real estate and facilities. So we directly work with the real estate and facilities, because hardware, it's not about just selecting the hardware. How are we going to install it in the building as well? So we will closely work with the real estate system and find out what kind of a network cable is needed, whether it is a battery operated, what is the maintenance it's going to involve. So, and before we make the decision, we go like a build versus buy, whether can we use our any existing software. Obviously, first we go for a Microsoft product, whether it is available. If it is available, we directly work with the product team and then execute it. If it is not available, then we go to the vendors, and obviously when we go to the vendors, we have to go through all the DSRE and security review process, whether it is compliant with Microsoft, and then go ahead and then purchase it. But the most of the hardware is handled by the real estate and services team within the CSU.
And then your software engineers then have to study the APIs and develop interface between the hardware and software.
So we have a building called Willows in Redmond. So where we actually, that's the most amazing building. You can see all kind of new hardwares available in that building. You need a special request actually. So you go to the building, actually we see like how it's being installed, and then we do the testing directly. But now due to the COVID-19 situations, we are not doing any testing, doing the remote trigger and everything. Even we are thinking like, can we use like a drone to do this moving related things, and how we can do it. But particularly we go to the Willows building actually. Yeah.
I think that's super cool. So thank you for the demo, and thank you again for sharing your time and experience with our attendees. So thanks, Jaya.
Thank you.
With that, I'll go ahead and move to our next presenter, Ayo. Ayo, are you ready? Ayo is actually Principal Group Engineering Manager for Microsoft's ERP or SAP implementation. So Ayo, if you're ready, I'll go ahead and pass the microphone to you virtually.
Thank you. Good to meet everyone. And thanks for the quick intro, Will. I think everybody has such a rich intro, demos, multiple countries and the like. And the reason I have a picture of the Avengers behind me is because I can show up everyone and show up cooler than everyone, just because their stories are too awesome. So that's why I always have this. That's for you, Jorge.
Nice.
Thank you. So yeah, Principal Group Engineering Manager, lived in 4 countries, Nigerian by birth. Like to study, as you can see, and I've had varied experiences before and at Microsoft. I am currently accountable for finance and HR SAP at Microsoft. SAP is our ERP platform. It is the core of the company. Every single transaction within the company happens here. Everybody we hire, everything we sell, everything we pay for happens here. I'm very lucky to have gotten to work with some of the people here. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, Jorge and I reported to the same manager. And about 18 months ago, Ratna and I reported to the same manager. So I also got to work in legal. That was my very first job at Microsoft. And I have been here for 10 years. In 2 months and 8 days, it will be 10 years that I have been at Microsoft. It's been a phenomenal journey. I have had really, really great managers, and I have learned a lot. I have grown a lot. What we do in SAP, well, I have a team of about 50 people, including me at this time. And we cover all the finance and HR capabilities for the company, or a lot of the finance and HR capabilities in the company. In HR, this is totally how we pay people. All 150,000 people in the company worldwide. This is payroll is how we pay them. And then we have the core HR services, which is basically all activities from hire to retire. Every Monday, Microsoft does NEO all across the world, and accounts need to be ready. People need to be set up. The identity needs to be managed. Whatever training they need to do, need to be ready. All of that starts from us. For finance, the capabilities that we support are core finance, the general ledger of the company. So every T account in the company is in our system. How we consolidate that and report out the revenue is our accountability. We're also accountable for treasury. So Jorge mentioned $1 trillion in transactions. Those transactions are recorded in our ledgers. And we run FSCM, which is Financial Supply Chain Management, which is the core SAP module that is used for managing treasury. We also handle all the payments in the company. I think it's more than $60 billion every year of payments that we do. These go through us as well. We cover planning and forecasting. So there are specific, very niche technologies that we use for that. It's called business plan and consolidation embedded. We use that for planning and forecasting. We are deploying that across the company, and then we do trade, all import and export, and all screening for all the people. So every time you pay for your Xbox Live subscription or you buy an Office 365 subscription, we screen that to make sure that we're not doing business. Microsoft is not doing business with people that have sanctions on them. Then tax, we have to be compliant with global tax rules. I'm accounting for that. And then procurement and payment. Again, every single thing we buy, all the way from pencils to servers that we are going to use to build data centers, that comes through us. I've had the job for 18 months. I now have 18 months of SAP experience, so don't ask me SAP questions because I'm learning too. How did I get into Microsoft? I got an invitation to a bar in late 2009, just after I finished at an MBA. So if anybody's ever lived in Toronto and you know the Drake Hotel, I got an invite to the Drake Hotel, and I went, well, this can't be real. But I was free. I didn't have a job. I ended up going to the bar. I noticed there were a lot of HR people there. They're hiring. So I took their contact details, and lo and behold, did interviews. 6 months later, I was here. And the thing that swung me was this, because I walked around Bellevue Square, and it wasn't very diverse in 2009. I walked around for about 30 minutes, didn't see a black face, and I thought to myself, I'm not going to take this job because I'm not going to have anything to eat. I'm Nigerian, Southwestern Nigerian by birth. So where am I going to find all the food that I'm going to eat here? But anyway, talked to a friend of mine. He said he talked me down. I took the job, and here we are. It's been 10 years, and it's been a wild ride. It's been fun, grown a lot.
So you've been there for 10 years. Can you speak a little bit to, I noticed the range of experiences that you've had from UX to PM to suite, SE lead. Can you speak to some of those experiences and then how you got into the leadership role that you're in now?
Certainly. I've been lucky. I've been very, very lucky, and I've had a ton of help. That's the first thing to start with. When I say I've worked with Jorge and Ratna, without the partnerships that we built over the last, half decade, there is no way I could have been prepared for the job I have now. That's the very first thing. The second thing is, look, you got to do the homework. And there was learning that I had to do. I'm an economist. I studied economics, but I have a master's in IT. I spent a few years doing web development and database work at the turn of the century. And then I have an MBA, so I understand finance. I understand P&L's, balance sheets, and financial planning. And started in Microsoft as a solution manager in legal doing records management. And then pairing with Jorge as a service engineer, running the procurement and payment system for the company. And then pairing with Ratna and running the expense and payment systems for the company, and then building an ML team. All of that, plus the education and the last pretty much 20 years of experience, is what helped me get here. And then a ton of support. Right? A ton of support, a ton of teaching, a ton of mentoring, a ton of people just helping me course correct and not make too many mistakes over time. Because you're going to make mistakes, you're going to break things. This is expected, right? But having people that support you, willing to learn and kind of trying to listen. This is how I learned to be prepared for the job that I have.
Excellent. I appreciate you sharing your experiences, and I'm sure, like I said, that a lot of the guests will probably have some questions for you specifically. But for the sake of time, we'll go ahead and move on to the next portion of the evening. So thank you, Ayo.
Thanks.
So I don't know if people have noticed, but I've been trying to ask some specific questions to members of the Microsoft CSEO team. Some of the questions that I've been asking are questions that I had for the panel discussion, but I thought they fit into the experience of some of the folks that were presenting. So for the panel discussion, I'm going to make it brief so that you guys have some time to ask some questions to the folks from Microsoft to answer, and then I'll moderate those questions from the chat. So the one panel question that I didn't ask anyone that is presented thus far was around Microsoft's employee resource groups, or ERGs. So if someone from the team would like to speak to their experience, being a part of an ERG at Microsoft and some of the initiatives those ERGs have been a part of, I think that would be very eye-opening for our guests.
Yeah, I can take that question. I'm part of one of the ERGs. There are many ERGs across Microsoft. One of the ERG was Women's ERG. And the vision of the ERG itself is that, it creates all the agendas thrive equally at Microsoft. That's their motto and statement. But in this ERG, they offer various type of programs and initiatives, especially focused and centered on women and allies, which helps to accelerate the Microsoft's cultural journey by increasing this inclusion, belonging, and representation of women. Personally, this community helped me to connect to various people, and it helped me as a networking event as well, and be inspired from amazing leaders out there, and just build my own allies and sponsors in that way. And it also amplified my learning, because they do a lot of level up sessions where they teach about a different way, like how do you represent yourself or how do you build your allyship. So all that sessions, really, I benefited a lot by learning from those sessions. And the mentoring ring programs, this is something I can tie back to what Rich was saying. I got a lot of mentors as part of this program. So that is one of the other benefit, this is where you have to look out. Microsoft has a lot of ERGs within itself who are trying to help and build the communities. As long as we are on the lookout and trying to get that, being curious and trying to get help from the ERGs, they're already there. So we need to, at least I benefited a lot from those ERGs.
So the next question is somewhat related to ERGs, but more around Microsoft's culture. A lot of you guys come from diverse backgrounds. We have attendees that are, primarily African-American and Latino. So I'm curious, a lot of people wonder, if they're going to work for a company like Microsoft, can they be themselves, culturally speaking? So if anyone wants to kind of step up from the Microsoft team to talk about their experiences of being themselves culturally at Microsoft and how comfortable they are with that.
I can start. So although I can't speak for every Black experience across Microsoft, Black America or Africans, when you say, can you be yourself culturally, I can be Rich Neal, and I don't have to worry about any sort of broad sense of judgment. Certainly you need to be, situationally mindful. I don't wear a tank top and holes with it to work, and that might be yourself. That wouldn't be situationally appropriate, professional. But I guess I'm somebody who, I said in my bio, I love sneakers, right? That's certainly probably not something that's widely done across the company, but I'm never made to feel outside or awkward because of my affinity towards wearing bright and loud shoes. But to the point, culturally, it's a very nuanced sort of thing. But to the point, I would say you certainly can be yourself at the company.
I'll echo that, Will. As you can see, I have a picture of superheroes behind me, and my office has a small picture of superheroes, because that's my thing, right? I like superheroes. I like to read. I like comic books, and I like the stories. And I know way too much about Thanos here. additionally, I mean, I grew up in Nigeria. First 24, 25 years of my life I was there, so that's what I am. My name is Ayo Kunle Fagbamiye. Most people know that. So I mean, I use Ayo because it's easier for most people to say. But I have not westernized my name in any way. And I'm close to my family, and I don't hide that at all. So the things that are truly important to me, the reason I work, which is to indulge hobbies like this and to be able to take care of the people I care about. And if I'm lucky at work, make a few friends. You need to bring your whole self to there. And then in order to truly build trust and to build relationships that last and to build allies that help you and trust you and that you help, there is no way to do it but to be yourself, as far as I know.
Excellent. I can appreciate that. I actually myself almost went to work for Microsoft as well. I'm sorry, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, I just wanted to state that I am a visibly Muslim woman with a veil. So it is pretty evident, even before people know my name, they probably know that I am a Muslim. And one of the criteria I had when I wanted to work for Microsoft was I wanted to make sure that there is a lot of empathy for the general perspective of people. And in general, the idea of more, the management is questioned every single day on the decisions that they take from the moral perspective. And in the 2 years that I've worked here, I've always felt that people are able to do that. And these kind of questions are constantly answered by the management. You never feel like, oh, they're just trying to not, I never felt like that as being among the minorities here.
So I'm going to ask one last panel discussion, and it's going to be related to 2 current events that are going on. And I'm open to anyone that wants to volunteer a perspective from the Microsoft team. And those 2 current events are COVID-19. A lot of companies have employees that are working from home. A lot of companies have products and services that have, solved some of the issues related to more people working from home. So, for example, we had a hiring team from Microsoft Teams, the software that we're using right now, and how we talked about how their product was serving the needs of more people working from home. So, have you guys seen any, products or services or concerns that you guys have had to meet, with what you have your hands on that are related to, COVID-19 or the coronavirus? And then, so anybody that can speak to that.
So I can go. So there were a couple questions there. Number one is sort of how are we adapting, right? And the reality is it's a complicated situation. Some people are affected differently than others. So some people have different situations at home that are different than others. Technology has helped us massively to continue to perform our work. In terms of stuff that we're doing internally that are affecting COVID. So as I mentioned earlier, I work in a group that is called Corporate External and Legal Affairs. The important part there is external. And one of the businesses that we have there is philanthropies. So we've enabled a lot of small and medium-sized companies to acquire technologies like Teams and SharePoint and Microsoft 365 with different billing criteria and things like that, so that companies can go through and take advantage of those technologies to perform during this pandemic. So there's been a lot of effort about enabling that process, about enabling our employees to donate to specific causes, things of that nature that we have worked on, very directly impacting the COVID situation. You're still muted.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. So without further ado, I wanted to definitely leave some time for folks to ask questions through the chat window. So if you have a question that has not yet been answered through one of the team members in the chat, please do ask your question now. And then what I will do is I will read some of these questions from the chat window for the team.
Hey, Will, can I throw something in before you move into that?
Please do.
Yeah. So Will asked a question about culturally, can you be who you are when you come to work? My response was, it's still the same. I won't change that. But I do wanna offer a few words to all of our experiences are uniquely different at this company. If you join this company, your experiences will be uniquely different. And if it isn't the culture or experience that you want, need, or feel is right for you, you always have choice, right? So there's times I can say, yeah, I can be myself, but that doesn't mean that I haven't been met with, sort of subtle microaggressions or things like that. But I still, in the culture, feel as if I can call those things out, and there is a level of reciprocity on those who I might, bring that to. So I don't, we're on the call and everyone is smiling and it's all, to some level rainbows and unicorns. I want to make sure that all of our experiences are uniquely different. And we can be, I'll speak for myself, I can be myself. And if I'm met with an experience is something that is less than what I expect, I'm empowered to call that out, right? So I just want to make sure that we're all above board on the Q&A and that this is real in terms of what this is. Because again, it's a two-way sort of thing, and I don't want to paint a picture that isn't accurate to my whole experience of the company.
I appreciate that, and thanks, Rich, for adding that. So if anyone has any questions for us that you would like the Microsoft team to answer live, please ask those questions. I'm going to be monitoring the chat window. But first question that I saw that was asked a little bit earlier that I didn't see answered was related to a lot of the folks here on the call came into Microsoft through the college route and the direct hires from college. But we have on the call folks that are mostly folks with experience, some of them with a lot of experience that are interested in working for Microsoft. So if someone on the team could speak to the appetite for experienced talent within Microsoft and the fact that there are opportunities for senior developers, senior program managers, and the like on your teams.
Out of my entire team of 16, only 2 people were college hires. So yes, there is appetite for, I think that answers the question. There is a lot of industry hire. There is a lot of industry hire that comes in with senior experience, and we appreciate that. We learn from practices from other companies. We enrich our culture by hiring from the industry as well. So yes. Yes, we do. So
thank you, Jorge. So for those of you that are asking recruitment process related questions, I'm going to ask someone from the recruitment or HR team to speak to the process before we close up the call. But so for those recruitment process related questions, we are going to address that. But looking through the questions here, one question was, are there any groups within CSEO where the teams involved require DoD clearance? So I'm not sure who on the team might know the answer to that, but if you had any experience.
There are, and it's public domain. We've landed some in the DOJ and have had some things going on with that. But there are jobs at Microsoft that require government clearance, and especially if you're a software development, software engineer, flagged during this process.
Yeah, I think the word Jedi program has not gone unnoticed, particularly in the DC area. So yes, there are opportunities within the company involved with government clearance.
So are there any Microsoft, and this is with respect to one of the questions, and thank you for both of you for answering that one, But I saw an interesting question related to the background that you need to be a software engineer. Do you need a computer science degree, for example, or software engineering degree to be a developer at Microsoft? So are there any of you on the team that don't have a CS related degree, but you have done software engineering at Microsoft?
Economist.
I'm from electronics background,
Me too.
electronics and communications.
I studied economics. I think we should maybe unpack what it means to be a software engineer a little bit. So I work right now in SAP, right? We're not writing a ton of C# or Java code or SQL, but we are enabling processes which are critical to business motions within the company. What does this mean? Well, SAP, as you know, 50-plus-year-old company, maybe 60 even, has its own internal programming language called ABAP, has its own internal business data warehouse called BW, and data extraction mechanism called BODS, and has its own pretty much everything that Microsoft, Windows, Azure, .NET has. There is a parallel inside SAP, right? And there are a very number of skill sets that you need to operate this software. A lot of the time, you are creating a state machine of some sort, where you have a series of transactions that are happening. You have to maintain the state, and then you must complete a logical unit of work of some sort within SAP. A lot of the time, you then need to integrate with an external system. Somebody needs to write a microservice. Somebody needs to write a REST API. Somebody needs to write a web front end. Somebody needs to write a mobile app. You may write that using standard software engineering, more commonly known software engineering programming languages like .NET, Java, React, and so on and so forth. Or you may do it using internal SAP technologies like Fiori, right? So there is a very, very large, broad set of skill sets that we can bring to the table. Look, I have people that are on my team that work in SAP that are CPAs, right? Are they any less software engineers because they don't write .NET? I don't think so, right? We couldn't do business planning and forecasting without cost accounting plus ABAP knowledge. We could not do it, period, right? So we could not do treasury and the management of account payable and the moving around of the Microsoft accounts, of the money in the Microsoft account, without deep FSCM and ABAP knowledge. Just can't happen, right? It's all accounting. It's all deep software engineering and state management and management of objects. It's all regression testing where you need to do an upgrade. The principles are the same. So I think we should not look at things only from the perspective of I need to know .NET because it's more Microsoft. We should look at it as I need to understand object-oriented principles. I need to understand quality and design and architecture, and I need to know how to deliver at scale. That's really what we look for. Some of the people that we've recently hired on our team, I had a military hire that came in. He was an intelligence analyst. He's learning SAP from scratch. Another person used to write code for autonomous vehicles, right? Zero finance experience, and we have them working on finance, doing planning and forecasting for us. So there's opportunity for all.
Yeah. Also, I'll want to add a few more things to what I was saying, right? Like, be curious and show that you are willing to learn and ready to learn. I mean, that's the most important thing. And like, during the interview, there's no right or wrong answers that matters. It's the approach and just being yourself and being curious, and your willingness and the growth mindset really matters. So that's an important thing to keep in mind during the interviews as well.
Yeah, go back and listen to that answer from Radna. It cannot be understated. It is so important that one of the qualities that we look for the most is that passion to learn, the passion to grow, the passion to get better. One of the most effective and efficient SQL developers that I've known within this company went to school to be a butcher and then became a helicopter pilot. And then somehow he ended up building SQL code at Microsoft.
Yeah.
don't worry about the background. Don't worry about what you studied or what certificate do you have. Don't worry about that. What job are you looking to do? What qualifications do you have for that? How do you showcase that? And how do you demonstrate that passion for learning and for growing towards a career, towards a specific area? But as I mentioned earlier, and as a lot of the experiences that Rich, Radna, Ayo, Kasi, myself, we've talked about, we keep reinventing ourselves. Technology moves, you move, right? So don't think about a specific certification or a specific background.
Yeah, and sorry, just to add very quick, because I see a lot of questions about like the technical interviews and the coding questions that are asked in the interview process. And oftentimes the people who are just out of school, and oftentimes they're really scared to answer these questions. But the way these questions are asked, we're not looking for a meticulous code written on the whiteboard, which is like great performance, but we're looking at the general strategy in the mind of the person who's solving the problem. We're not looking for the right answer, but we're looking for how does this person dig into this problem and what kind of questions does he ask to basically clarify the requirements of the problem. So try and accommodate that as well. Don't think of it as a programming question that's given to you, but rather like a problem that's given to you, and you should be solving it from the perspective of asking a lot of questions about that problem. You have to be able to code to some extent for a SWE position, for sure. But we're not looking for people, okay, you have to know Java from, we do Bing syntax a lot of times. Don't let anyone know about that, but we do that all the time. So we're not looking for people writing that perfect syntax, but more like the approach that they take to solving the problem.
Excellent. So with respect to time, we've only got a couple of minutes left, and I wanted to make sure that I gave the HR team a little bit of time to kind of speak to the process, because I've seen a lot of questions that are related to the types of roles that are available, when they'll hear back from Microsoft and that. So Bharti, I don't know if you're available, but if you would like to just give a couple of words towards the recruiting and the interviewing process.
Yeah, I am. Thank you, Will. Yeah, we have 2 minutes to go, so I'll try to wrap quickly. So first of all, thank you so much, everyone, taking time to join us and for this event. And we all really appreciate your time. And I am seriously loving the engagement here. I was actually kicked out quite a few times from the chat, so I'm sorry I couldn't respond too much because somehow my internet is not working well. But quickly introduce myself. My name is Bharti and I am from GTA organization, which actually stands for Global Talent Acquisition. And regarding the process, the recruiting process for this event, basically there are 3 steps in the process. The first one is going to be the tech screen. And so I and Jesse Sparks from who's our sourcing lead, we both will be working to help throughout the process for the recruiting process. And so the first step is going to be the tech screen. Jesse will be reaching out to Jesse will be reviewing the profiles and reaching out over the phone to talk to the candidates. And then once we have a tech screen feedback, we will be inviting for the final interviews. Interview is going to be the virtual interviews. There will be 3 interviews on the same day, maybe. And then the third step going to be finding a team fit and team matching. So I will be working with the hiring teams to, share the feedback and profiles, and then connecting together the candidates and the team. So basically that's the process. I would also, since I don't have too much time, I also would like to call out the FAQ link Kierson has shared here in the chat. It has a lot of information and may answer quite few questions regarding the recruiting. But anytime, reach out to us, me or Jesse, if you have any recruiting related questions. And even if they are not recruiting related, please shoot them to us. And if we don't know the answer, we will pull in the right folks to get them.
Thank you, Barchi. So we basically are out of time for the event. But the good news is if you came in a little bit late, we did record this session, and I'm going to follow up with everyone. So keep an eye on your email where I will share, if you haven't submitted your resume already, where you can submit your resume, where you can actually, if you're interested in interviewing, where you actually go to submit your information to set up an interview, based on availability. So I'll give you that information. And then also I will share that frequently asked question page as well, which has some really great information. We were able to take a look at it before the event. And I think once you get that email, please click on that frequently asked question because it's very informative. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone. And if there are no further comments from the Microsoft team, we can adjourn. All right.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks.
Good luck, everybody.
Yep, thanks for your time. Appreciate the Microsoft team for continuing to reach out to diverse candidates for the opportunity that you have available. And thanks everyone for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Everyone take care.
Thanks all.